Holy cannoli. That ending of this week's episode of Jobless Reincarnation really hit an emotional string for me. And like, I don't even truly know why. Like, I was like hyped up during this whole entire episode. And the ending scene with Eris's grandpa just like it totally like got me like teary eyed. Like, it really struck an emotional chord with me, and it wasn't like it was overly emotional or anything necessarily, but like it was just out of left field for me, that I didn't even realize that we were going to get this little insight or tidbit into the Grey Rat family. And I don't really even know who he's being punished of. I'm guessing that he was punished by the head of the Grey Rat family or by the king. I'm not really too sure. If you guys know for sure if that was internal Grey Rat family stuff or if that was the king, let me know in the comments. But that struck like a serious emotional chord within me because Eris was talking with Rudy, and they were talking about how they were at the Beast Village, and she was like, I can't wait to tell Grandpa about this. You know, he's going to be so jealous. And then they cut to him, and you know, he's on hands and knees, hands behind back, and you know, this fat dude's talking about that he needs to be punished for the mishandling of the Mana disaster, and because his mishandling of the Mana disaster, the people have suffered, and he needs appropriate he needs a appropriate justification, or he needs a appropriate action to be taken against him, which is at this time they're going to require his head. And then they execute him. Before they execute him, he's like, I can't believe this. This is insane, and he knows that they're using this as an excuse to remove him from the equation. But his last words, or his last, maybe not words, but his last thoughts to himself were, Eris, if you're out there, I wish you a very, happy, fulfilled life. Like, his last final thoughts were about his baby girl, his granddaughter, Eris, who he holds, really high, obviously, and you can imagine. And then they take his head and it rolls. And I was just like, I didn't even know, like, how to respond. I was just stunned. I was just stunned at that. And, like, it just goes back to Jobless Reincarnation. Whatever your feelings are, I don't think, if you guys are this deep, if you're on episode 14 and you still have some kind of like animosity towards it, I don't know why you're watching it, just to be 100%. Most people should have dropped it a long time ago. I can't imagine somebody watching 14 episodes and still talking shit about it, right? But the thing that I've heard the most about Jobless Reincarnation is just people's views on Rudy, right? And people's misconception of them not really understanding what the story is about. This isn't an isekai to where you put yourself in the main character's shoes, right? You don't put yourself in the protagonist's shoes like maybe you would with like a sword art, and you're thinking like, oh, I could be Kirito, I could be that VR's hero, I could be this, I could be Mr. Harem guy. This isn't for you to really put yourself in his shoes. It's a story about you viewing somebody who was a bastard. He was a piece of crap. You know what I mean? He lived 34 years of his life just being this dude who mooshed off his parents to the day that they died, and he was just a piece of garbage. He was a piece of garbage human being. And it's about giving somebody like that a second lease on life and watching him change as a person and experience emotions and relationships and feelings that he never had before, because the things that happen in his past life don't dictate his new life. He's able to use his knowledge and experiences, but he's able to have these new experiences and gain new knowledge and be a new version of himself. And this is a story about this kid, this dude, this old man, being in a kid and being able to say, what I did then is not what I'm going to do now. I'm going to be a different person. And although a lot of the, his traits went over, he's been constantly overcoming the knee-jerk reactions he's had to a lot of things. And he's really been growing as a character. Even right now into this episode, he was struggling to, should I save these beast kids, should I not? And ultimately he said out loud, if I save them, they'll owe me one. But in reality, he was disgusted and appalled by what these people were doing. And the only hesitancy that he really had wasn't what are, should I even bother with them? It was just for self-preservation. It was, you know, if I go help them, I don't want to die by helping them. But ultimately, he knew it was the right thing to do. And that's really what the story is about, is seeing somebody who was always hesitant and, never took action because he was always pushed down by the world. And he basically put himself into a dark corner and just became this slob piece of crap. But that's not who he is anymore. And each episode, since for a while, we've seen him overcome who he was. And I think that's like a real special message, but it's really awesome writing. And the awesome writing is even extenuated more by them being able to write scenes like the one that they ended on, right? Last week we had Roxy dealing with, a five-some and the elf. And then this week you have this emotional writing, right? They're able to do, the creators able to do these two polar opposites. Tug your heartstrings and tug something else. You know what I mean? And I think that is, it's impressive. And as a viewer, like, I just appreciate being able to go through a roller coaster of emotions as watching an anime. Like, that's what makes an anime on a tier of its own, where it is living, or it is being able to be in the same breath as other legendary anime. And I really think that this might be like the best isekai. Now, I don't have too much time left, so let's talk about the rest of the episode. The rest of the episode is focused around Rudy, and man, what a funny ass scene with him being in prison. He ends up like being naked, and he ends up being like tortured, and he ends up making a friend in prison who was put in prison with gambling. He, through his confidence, he just ends up making a friend. Dude is like massaging him even. And he's referring to him as like, like Aniki, like boss and stuff, and he's like, oh, boss man. And he makes really good friends with him. And I thought that was hilarious. Their whole dialogue back and forth, the whole him, starting off the episode with like his monologuing of, him being at a 5-star hotel and him being taken care of, but he's really just in prison. I thought, like, I was just laughing my ass off, like, no pun intended. And I thought that was so effing funny. And then he makes friends with this dude, and when the fire ends up happening, he kind of takes him under his wing. And I hope that their friendship continues beyond this. I'm going to be really excited to be able to see that. I think I want to see his friendship, go beyond that. And then obviously he's ultimately, the whole time he's trying to explain that, he wasn't guilty, it wasn't his fault. And then the fire ends up happening, and, he makes the choices to be able to save the village. He does it with that guy as well, because even that guy was realizing, like, this is some bullshit. Like, this is effed up. He's like, I might be in prison for his gambling stuff, but like, we need to save them. And I'm glad that this guy was in his ear as well, because I think that, Rudy was so hesitant, for his self-preservation kicked in, that he wasn't sure like what to do. And I was really glad that guy was there too. Ultimately, they end up saving it. He ends up using his mage, his magic. He is, using his mage magic and taking out the fire, saving some children. He uses his eye. He overcomes the North King god, Gladys, or whatever his name was, Gladys, who originally he had made a deal with before, but that guy was using him to distract the general and their main fighter so that they can come and steal these beast kids on a bigger plan, which was like, what a piece of shit for doing that. And ultimately, he's able to use his eye efficiently and overcome him, along with his new buddy dog, which I'm hoping that Rudy gets to keep that dog, because I love the dog. The dog is amazing. And then he gets to save them, and then he finally meets up with Eris, and we find out where Eris and Rudy'S were, they were dealing with their own things with the Beast Kids and all of that. And I just think this episode was fantastic. This episode was excellent and fantastic, and I loved every moment of it. This is awesome. It is awesome, and I cannot wait for next week. This is my favorite anime of the fall season, period, the end. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down below. Let me know what you think about all of my thoughts of, the anime in totality, but then, the emotional writing and the scenes with Grandpa, and then what happened with Rudy and everything, as well as the Beast Village. And what do you think comes next? You know what I mean? Let me know what you guys think comes next. If you guys missed our reaction, I'll put that video up screen right here. This is our full reaction. You can see all my laughing hysterically and everything in this reaction right here. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 4 of the Core 2 or episode 15. Peace out, my friends.